It is important to understand the past in order to understand where we are and where we hope to be. Throughout history, people with developmental disabilities have been viewed as incapable and incompetent in their capacity for decision-making and development. During the Renaissance period, the 12th through the 17th century, communities would sometimes send away those who were developmentally delayed in boats. These ship of fools, as they were called, would then show up at another harbor, only to be sent on to the next community. Until the Enlightenment period, 1650 through 1700, care was provided by families and the church, focusing on the provision of basic physical needs such as food, shelter, and clothing. In 1848, Dr. Samuel Gridley Howe established the Massachusetts School for Idiotic Children, the first publicly funded institution serving the developmentally disabled. He founded the school with a $2,500 appropriation from the Massachusetts legislature. Dr. Howe was successful in his attempt to educate the developmentally disabled, but this led to other problems, as many then argued that the disabled did so well in schools like Dr. Howe's that they should remain permanently incarcerated there. Dr. Howe argued that the mentally disabled had rights and that segregating them from the rest of society would be detrimental. Around the same time period, Edouard Seguin established the first private school in Paris dedicated to the education of the developmentally disabled. He is also the first educator to author textbooks on the subject. He immigrated to the U.S. in 1848 and eventually established a number of schools in various cities for children with developmental disabilities. Dorothea Dix was the most effective single advocate of humanitarian reform in U.S. history. She traveled the country and wrote often how the services to the developmentally disabled were irregulated, underfunded, and often produced abuse. The culmination of her work was the Bill for the Benefit of the Indigent Insane, which called for federal land to be set aside to build schools for the developmentally disabled. President Pierce vetoed the bill, arguing that the federal government should not commit itself to social welfare, which was properly the responsibility of the states. The movement towards individualism in the 18th and 19th centuries led to housing and care using the asylum model. People were placed by or removed from their families, usually in infancy, and housed in large institutions. Some of these institutions provided a very basic level of education, but most continued to focus solely on the provision of basic needs. The conditions varied widely, and the support provided was non-individualized. The people were still considered a burden to society. Heavy tranquilization and assembly line methods of support were the norm. Early in the 20th century, the Eugenics Movement became popular throughout the world. Eugenics is the applied science or the biosocial movement which advocates the use of practices aimed at improving the genetic composition of a population. This led to forced sterilization and prohibition of marriage. The treatment of those in institutions became worse. The eugenics movement was later proven to be seriously flawed and in violation of human rights. The next few slides are from a book called A Christmas and Purgatory. They are not easy to view. This classic photo essay of legally sanctioned human abuse in state institutions was written and photographed in 1965, long before the current right to treatment lawsuits on behalf of institutionalized people. In 1965, U.S. Senator Robert Kennedy visited several state institutions. His travels were documented by local newspapers. The general public was numbed because it was difficult for uninvolved people to believe that in our country, human beings were being treated less humanely, with less care, and under more deplorable conditions than animals. The senator found dirt and filth, odors, naked patients groveling in their own feces. children in locked cells, horribly crowded dormitories, and understaffed and wrongly staffed facilities. Many of these severe conditions were not necessarily the consequences of the institutionalization. These problems were largely the result of inadequate budgets, inferior facilities, untrained personnel, and haphazard planning, in spite of some dedicated and skilled professional workers in each of the institutions. Thankfully, a few believed in the abilities of those excluded from society. They believed that people with developmental disabilities were human beings who posed no threats to others. They were individuals in their own right, with needs, feelings, and dreams. In the early 1950s, some famous parents like TV personalities Dale Evans and Roy Rogers, plus Nobel Prize-winning author Pearl Buck, wrote publicly of their personal experience of having a child with a disability. This fueled a much larger parents' crusade to give children with special needs a better life in their home community. Soon, parents across the country followed suit. Eunice Kennedy Shriver, as executive vice president of the Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. Foundation in the 1950s, shifted the organization's focus from Catholic charities to research on the causes of people with intellectual disabilities and humane ways to treat it. This eventually culminated in, among other things, the Special Olympics. In 1969, Wolf Wolfensberger published a book that argued that all people can make a positive contribution to society. He pushed for a shift in policy and practice that recognizes the human needs of retardate and provided the same basic human rights as for the rest of the population. This publication was regarded as the first move toward desegregation and an increasing awareness of human rights and self-advocacy. In 1953, the first class of 11 children began meeting at the YWCA when their parents came together, determined to open the doors of opportunity despite public schools being closed to them because of developmental disabilities. In 1956, the Wabash School for the Exceptional became a proud partner agency with the United Fund, now known as the United Way. Older children and adults with developmental disabilities quickly demonstrated that they needed more than a classroom. In 1959, vocational training for adults was added to the school. In 1965, the parents handed over the reins to Wabash Center and began a fundraising campaign to build the center a home. It still wasn't enough. Families across the country wanted their children to go to school with the neighborhood kids. In 1973, Congress passed a law requiring public schools to provide an education for all school-aged children. Over the years, services moved into the community for both children and adults. With the growing number of adults in the workshop wanting to join the workforce, supported employment services began in 1976, enabling adults to become skilled, dependable workers and tax-paying citizens. Our programs have evolved, but our mission has remained the same: to optimize the quality of life for people with disabilities or special needs. Besides education, today's programs open doors to independent living, employment, and community involvement. Adult Day Services is a program that provides habilitation training services for adults with severe and profound intellectual disabilities, and in some cases, physical disabilities as well. The individuals involved in this program require constant care and attention. Our goal is to help stimulate and enrich their lives while guiding them in small steps to a more self-sufficient life to the greatest extent possible. The focus is on developing basic self-help skills, social skills, and simple work habits. For some, additional training is provided to enhance community navigation skills and other activities of daily living that promote independence. Assisted Living Service is our residential support services division. Assisted living includes the operation of 25 homes. The entire supported living program serves adults by providing care and support for individuals with disabilities in their own residence. Services in our 3 group homes and many supported living sites operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some individuals in our supported living program may only require services part of the day or a few hours a week. Services are tailored to meet individual needs. Greenbush Industries is a vocational training and employment option for adults with developmental and physical challenges. The focus of this division is on developing basic work skills and habits while encouraging independence and self-reliance to the greatest extent possible. Many long-term partnerships with local businesses and industries have enabled Wabash Center to have the subcontract work available to make this program possible. For those who are developmentally challenged, additional vocational training is provided to enhance self-sufficiency. Employabilities reaches out to the unemployed or underemployed individuals with special needs in our community. The objective of employabilities is to assist each person served to find and keep meaningful, gainful, competitive employment. This is done through training and job development skills, assistance in locating and planning for additional supports, plus on-the-job coaching or training. Our strong relationships with employers in the area have enabled hundreds of persons with special needs to become employed, and thus more independent and self-reliant.